how do I go from earning an income to living off of my nest egg, the money that I've saved up and invested throughout my years? How do I retire? That is the biggest question that we see for pre-retirees, those over the age of 50 who are nearing their retirement. And here's the thing, a lot of them are starting to realize that you need a plan. You can't just wing it and hope that things are going to work out in retirement. Because those who don't have a plan run the risk of running out of money, and then they may end up having to rely on help or going back to work. And nobody wants that when they're in their 70s and 80s. So let's talk about how you retire. Your retirement plan needs to address the following 3 questions. Number 1, how much do I need? We need to be clear on this, and we need to have a target that we're working towards. So how much do I need to live my ideal life in retirement? And we need to consider the following factors in that. Housing, food, all the other bills that are required as the standard overhead of being alive and living, and then also travel, entertainment, and other leisure activities as well. A good starting point for that is to take a look at the expenses that you have right now, because that's going to give you an idea of the kind of life you want to live in retirement. Now, once we have that figured out, we can't forget the other important factors that are going to really dictate how much money we need. The first is longevity. People are living a lot longer and thus need more money to sustain them over that longer life. 2 is inflation. As we all know, the cost of goods and services is going up, and we need our money to be able to keep pace with inflation, to give us the same purchasing power that we had before. Number 3 is taxes. How do we make sure we're as tax efficient as possible? Because in retirement, again, we're not earning money, we're taking money out off of a set amount. How do we make sure that we can pay as little in taxes as possible? And healthcare costs. Unfortunately, as we get older, we need more healthcare, and Medicare is not going to cover everything. How are we going to supplement that care? And also, how are we going to include other things like long-term care? So if I don't know what I need, I don't know what I'm shooting for, what my target is, and I may end up not having enough. I may end up running out of money. So figure out your number and then go from there. Now that you know your number, the second question you need to be able to answer is, how do I get there? How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? First, we need to take a look at what we have. What are the assets that we have? Because those assets are going to fund our nest egg. What do we have in cash, our checking and savings account? What do we have in retirement plans like our 401k, 403b, and IRAs? What do we have in non-retirement accounts, taxable accounts? Do we have real estate? Do we own businesses? And what can we expect to get from Social Security? Once we figure out what we have, now we can figure out the gap between what we have and what we want to get to, where we want to be. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you get there from where you are to where you want to be? The number one thing that I can recommend is focusing on what you can control. And that is not market returns or tax policy, because that we have no control over. We do have control, however, over our saving and investing rate. How much are we saving from our income, and how much are we putting away and putting to work? We can increase our savings and make sure that we're making the maximum contributions to things like our retirement plans, and also that we're taking advantage of the catch-up contributions available to those over the age of 50, where you can add in more money than you can under the age of 50. Can we increase our savings and investments to outside investments in the after-tax accounts? And can we find ways to cut expenses? Can we also focus when it comes to investing on asset allocation? How are we investing our money? Stocks versus bonds, US versus international. And on par with asset allocation is asset location. How is my money being invested? In what accounts specifically? Are they after tax? Are they pre-tax? Are they Roth? So figure out your current financial standing, figure out the gap that you have between where you are and where you want to be, and then work on the things that you can control to bridge that gap. And the last question we need to be able to answer when we want to retire is, how do I make it last? Again, we talked about this before, but the worst case scenario is running out of money. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to run out of money and possibly become a burden to their family, or to have to rejoin the workforce at a much later age. We want to be able to retire once and stay retired. And a big part of that is watching out for an unknown risk that most people don't know about. And that's called sequence of returns risk. And this risk is that you can retire at the wrong time. Retiring in an up market is great because as you take money out, your money can continue to grow. But if you actually end up retiring in a down market and you're taking out withdrawals, you run the risk of running out of money much faster than you realized. So, how do you manage that risk? How do you manage making sure that your money can continue to grow, keep pace with inflation and healthcare costs and taxes as well, but also it's not subject to all of the risks of the market where you may end up falling victim to sequence of returns risk? And again, when you're taking money out, how do you manage taxes? We don't want to be giving the government more money than we need to. So, what are the most tax efficient ways to take money out? Which accounts am I taking money out of, and in what order? It's great to do the work and build up a nest egg that you can retire on, but we need to make sure that it's enough, it's going to sustain you, and you're not going to run out of money. So, how do I retire? You need to be able to answer the three questions I just talked about. How much do I need? How do I get to that number? And how do I make it last? A good financial plan will address these questions and leave room for adjustments as life happens. So, my advice to you is figure this out on your own, come up with your own financial plan, or ask for help. There are plenty of good professionals out there that can help you build a proper financial plan and help secure your retirement. Don't be afraid to ask for help because this is way too important to ignore. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you soon.